is December. It's time for my December wrap-up. I'd like to say that I don't like December. December and Christmas is probably my least favourite time of the year. I just generally don't like Christmas at all. I've read a fair few books this month. Let's get started. The first book I read was Throne of Glass by Sarah J Maas. Now, this is an assassin story. I've never actually read an assassin book before, so I was really excited to actually read this, and the fact that it was a female assassin made it seem even more interesting to actually pick up in the first place, because the majority of the assassins, you have to admit, are male. I found this book to be slightly disappointing because it more focused in on a love story, I'm afraid. In fact, a love triangle, and I was really disappointed at the fact that there was a love triangle in this. This is one of the YA books that did not need a love triangle in it. It was interesting enough without it, and I found that even from the beginning, she wasn't acting like an assassin, well, what I'd think an assassin would act like. She was acting like a young girl in love, and even at the beginning she was saying how she thought that the prince was attractive, and I just really didn't like that about the book. It was okay other than that. The story wasn't awful, so that's the reason that I will give this one 3 stars. The next book I read was the very hefty Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. Now, I absolutely adored this book, although admittedly I couldn't finish it the whole way through. I had to stop halfway, read another couple of books and start again from where I was, because it is just too big for me. There are some things that I need to take my time with as well. It's not written in a complicated way, but it is at the same time, if that makes sense. So I felt as though I was having to read this slowly in order to actually digest all of the information that was being thrown at me. There are so many characters in this book. Each one of them is described perfectly, and each has their own individual personalities. Absolutely brilliant book. The best storytelling that I have read in a long time, and the fact that Martin made it span over about 900 pages and not let me get bored is a wonder. I am going to give this one a 5 stars. Next is Leviathan by Scott Westerfeld. I think it's before the First World War, if I remember rightly. I love this book. It is a guilty pleasure of mine. It goes towards the younger end of young adult and almost ends up as a child's book, but it is a simple story. It is wonderfully written for a child, I'd say, but it is still wonderfully written, and it was just adventure packed, nothing too serious, nothing too complicated, and I just really liked it. It was a good read. I'm going to give this one 3 stars. Next I read Hush Hush by Becca Fitzpatrick. Now this one I was very disappointed in. I'd heard so many good reviews about this. I've also got a video review of this as well, so I'll link that down below where I'll go into more detail about what I think, or I rant. Nora Grey in this book annoyed the hell out of me, to put it simply. She is, as her surname suggests, grey, bland, boring, and she reminds me of Bella from Twilight. Enough said. I have given this a 2 stars. The next book I have read is Pandemonium by Lauren Oliver. Now this is the sequel to Delirium. I don't think that I have ever loved a sequel more than the first book. Ever. I mean, I always go through this thing of second book syndrome, where the second book is awful in comparison to the first book, but this is amazing. It picked up on all the negative aspects of the first book that I found and just made it 100 times better. For instance, I thought that in the first book it was slightly too wordy for my likings, and in this book it cut down on a ridiculous amount of description and gave story instead, and that made it so much better. Lena also was so much more strong in this book, I found, and I actually liked her character, and although some of the twists and turns were actually quite predictable, I actually thought that it was an amazing novel, and the twist at the end, oh my god, oh my goodness, I was actually, I just don't want to say it because it will just spoil it, but if you haven't read this book, read the first book first and then go on to this one, because this is so much better. 5 stars. The next book is The Boy Who Sneaks in My Bedroom Window by Kirsty Mosley. When I first read the synopsis of this book, I thought that it sounded really interesting. It's basically about a girl whose father used to abuse her when she was younger, and she doesn't like to be touched, but there's this boy who has sneaked in her bedroom window every night and just comforts her to sleep. And it sounded as though it would be some really romantic novel about a growth of love, and it just wasn't. The abuse thing was just a subplot, and the romance thing was just unbearably shallow and unbearably annoying. And every single person in the school that Amber, our main character, went to was just a slut. Why does the author think that if everyone else in the school is a slut, that makes Amber look less of a slut, even though towards the end of the book she gets to be like it as well? And I just can't take it. And if I have to read another book that repeats the same phrases, fine ass, flirty wink, she purred, I think I might just do something stupid. I think I might chuck my Kindle out the window or something. No, I wouldn't. I don't know. I just hated this book, and therefore it really hasn't given me hope in the kind of contemporary romance kind of genre, but I'm going to be reading some more of it in the new year anyway, but I'm just going to give this one a 1 star. Last but not least, Pretties by Scott Westerfeld. Now, this is the sequel to Uglies, and I absolutely loved Uglies to bits. I thought it was amazing, and it ended on such a cliffhanger, but I was really disappointed in Pretties. It took me about 75% of the book to actually get into it in the first place, and something about it really bugged me. I think it was the writing. In the Pretty Town, they had a language of their own. They'd call things bubbly and bogus and dizzy making and things like that, and I just didn't get it. I really went through half of the book wondering what was actually going on. I just thought it was quite boring. I was quite disappointed, and unlike Pandemonium, this really did suffer from second book syndrome. I didn't like it, but yeah, I'll give this one a 3 stars. Okay, so now that that's over with, I also wanted to talk about my reading resolutions for 2013. Now, because I only started properly reading this summer, I think it was, I decided to actually set myself some goals for the up and coming year. First of all, I would like to challenge myself to read 100 books. I'm not quite sure if I'm being a little bit too ambitious, but we will see. I don't want to amend it. If I don't reach 100 books, fair enough, but that is my goal, to reach 100 books. I mean, this year I've read 41 books, and that's been the majority in the past 3-4 months, I'm pretty sure. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, I'll be able to make 100 next year. The next one is I want to read more genres. I have mainly been focusing on young adult fiction. I am doing on Blogger the 2013 Genre Variety Challenge, and this is actually hosted by A Daydreamer's Thoughts. I'll link everything in the down bar so you can go check it out. I'm hoping to read 24 genres of books, because I do not want to stick to YA for the rest of my life. I want to broaden my horizons and see if there's anything else that I like. I mean, I might turn out to like horror books, for example. Probably not, but you never know. The next one is finish series that I have started. I always like to read the first book, have a gap, and then read the second book, but then that gap tends to get quite big, and I never end up reading the second book of a series. So I actually want to read a full series of something, or I want to finish the series that I've actually started, like His Dark Materials, The Infernal Devices, The Mortal Instruments. Obviously there are so many more series that I need to finish. I actually want to try reading more than one book in a row of the same series for once as well. So that for myself will be a challenge, because of the fact that, not because it's impossible, it'll be a challenge because of the fact that I just don't like to do it. There's something about reading the next book in a series after the first one that really gets on my nerves. I don't know what it is, but we will do this. And last but not least is to carry on making videos, and I'm actually really enjoying it at the moment, and I really want it to get better as well. I am just off 50 subscribers, which I think is absolutely crazy that 50 people are watching my videos. Thank you so much for watching. If you wanted to introduce yourselves down below so we can get to know each other, then go, feel free, do you know what I mean? Like, I quite like the conversation, if I'm honest. I think I'm a bit nervous about it still, but hopefully my confidence will improve and everything in the new year, and everything will be fine. 2013 is the year that this will happen.